Okay, episode
6A. Roll.
Welcome to Quantum Kinetics First Diffusion, episode 6A. We're here with
Bryton Rodgers.
Bryton Rodgers. All right, so you just finished up a podcast with Randall Bird and talking about the direction of quantum kinetics with production of nuclear fusion, first diffusion for America and the rest of the world. How'd you feel about that? How was that episode?
Fun time. We kind of got on a roll there. I got to get out some good one-liners, I think. And we covered everything we set out to talk about in pretty quick order.
Well, thank you so much for coming part of the team, Bryton. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we got a lot to do, and the more people we get, the better the ship's going to be. So
we're going to have a packed ship before too much longer here, I think.
So I have a very strange question for you that probably the audience is also thinking too, is what is gravity?
Well, I think everybody's thought that for a very, very long time. And I don't know if I have a very coherent or clear answer for that, but I know we've discussed this a bunch of times when we're standing at the whiteboard trying to iron out both manufacturing and technological questions, but also the theoretical side of things and trying to make this whole thing work. We dig back to it, and what are the other attractors to each other that we know about? It's like we got positive and negative. That pops up everywhere.
Anode and cathode.
Anode, cathode, electron, proton, positive and negative voltage. Mm-hmm. Guys and gals.
Isn't that how nature works? You always have to have a positive and negative to equalize, just like the electron versus the positron, which is matter and antimatter, to make an equalized force, right?
Yeah.
Nature abhors a vacuum, and if there is a vacuum, it wants to fill it in.
Mm-hmm.
But it must fill it in with something of significance that is balanced, because that is the fundamental nature of Mother Nature. Balance. So, in your personal opinion, what do you think gravity actually is, really? In your feelings, in your gut?
Well, we can go back to the kind of, well, at this point it's a classical explanation when you talk about Einsteinian physics, where you have this concept of a well that is kind of inexplicably causing things to just roll down towards it, fall towards it. And those wells can move about, so the well's being moved about too, right?
Is that a third body problem, maybe?
There's certainly three body problems involved in trying to figure out where stuff is moving because of gravity. And it's a difficult one to solve. And it really seems like when you look at these systems on a solar system level, like the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, they are just so long-lived. It seems like something's keeping it perfectly balanced in some way. So something's got to be adjusting in that, because all of our systems, when we try and make a three body system be stable according to our mathematics, they throw themselves out of equilibrium and just disintegrate and fly apart in pretty short order, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, and when you have an atom come into existence, you have to have this thing called a gluon that's up quark and down quark. There's gluons that hold them together. So now we're talking about subatomic particles that are actually in existence. These are like 1/3 to 2/3 charged particles.
Which has always been a little bit curious to me. When you get into the topics of quarks and gluons and partial charges, that's where I kind of get a little bit lost in the sauce there.
And that, when we talked about this a little bit in episode 5, where basically when you kill, or it's actually episode 4, we kill the cat. Like particle physics right now kills the cat in their particle accelerators. They spool them up and they hit particles together and they blow apart, and they see the up quark, the down quark, the charm, all these different little subatomic particles. But what your point is there is that they don't do anything. They're not alive. There's no reason to have them.
They're extremely extremely short-lived.
Ah.
They're not stable systems.
Wow.
And they don't stay in existence.
Are you
for very long.
suggesting that the electron holds together because it has its own gravity?
That seems like a fair assumption. It's got something holding whatever it is together that everything's made up of. And I personally like falling back on the ether concept because it seems to be the most internally consistent with everything I've learned about and studied, despite a few naysayers here and there. I think it's important to keep in mind that despite the Michelson-Morley interferometry experiments, you have other people who have gone and done interferometry experiments later with dramatically different results, like Dayton Miller at Case Reserve Western University. And
can you give us a synopsis of that one just for the audience that doesn't know that study? Just real quick.
So the ether's been explained a few different ways and conceptualized a few different ways. One that's common and one that was used for the conceptual disproving of the ether from the Michelson-Morley results, where they didn't detect any ether drift, was that they were assuming that the ether was this kind of crystalline, solid, unmoving matrix that the universe exists and moves within. If you start conceiving of the ether as more of an extremely, I wouldn't say sparse or low density, it's just much more active. If you start thinking of it as an extremely, extremely active and extremely fine fluid that can just move in and around everything without much interference, and you look at things in terms of like, well, maybe dense things provide more of a barrier to this ether movement and ether flow, but it still flows.
Are you suggesting, I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you suggesting that ether might be the quantum vacuum flux?
Absolutely.
Because it's
absolutely
jittering.
Some people would call it the Dirac sea. And also the source of the vacuum fluctuations that they observed in between plates at the University of Washington. If I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the
my alma
Casimir.
mater. Go Dogs.
Go Huskies.
When Michelson-Morley, when that experiment occurred, they carried out that experiment in the basement of a big, dense, old stone and steel building. So it's both underground.
That's a good point.
And surrounded by highly dense materials.
That's a great point.
Highly shielding materials. So when they turned around their device to measure interferometry in several directions, they basically were floating along in a boat with shielding from the flow of water going around the hole while they did these experiments, and the water flowing around the hole is the ether, with the hole being the building they were inside of. Dayton Miller.
Basically a Faraday cage. They did the Michelson-Morley experiment in a Faraday cage that was decoupled from the ether.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a very good way of describing it. And when somebody else had this thought later on down the road, it's like Michelson-Morley was very much not conclusive. There were a lot of people talking at that time and for a long time after that kept saying, but wait, there's a lot of other explanations that could do this. And the mainstream science community and the media focused around it, and where the money for research was going, all just ran off in that direction with Michelson-Morley, and then the conclusions that Einstein drew from that with the relativities and with Lorentz contractions, and they were interpreting all this data in that very specific manner. Dayton Miller said, well, what if it's getting shielded and you can't detect it? So he, using a very extensive and well-controlled and several times repeated process, went up to the top of the mountain and built an extremely well thermally insulated enclosure and stable enclosure for essentially the same kind of interferometric device. Did a lot and this guy spent a long time working these details out and he got very consistent and confirmatory results for his own work. And that just never made it out into the mainstream. And to me, that was a very game-changing concept, because once you accept that ether is, at the very least, possibly real, you start opening up your mind to a lot of other scientific and technological possibilities.
Something has to come from something. Even the Big Bang says that in some magical moment, everything was created in one magical moment, but in the same breath, and then they tell you nothing can be created or destroyed. It's like, I got gaslit so hard, my brain is still spinning, so I will just do whatever I have to do to get that grade and not question.
Who's your God? The Big Bang or God?
And the answer, and this is really interesting, because we're not saying that this technology is anything that special. Matter of fact, we're saying quite the opposite. We're saying that it's the oldest technology in the universe. And the ether, even Michael Faraday, the founding father of DC electrolysis with basically a battery, dead shorting it with making a flame, he said, and so did James Clerk Maxwell, there's ether. Even Oliver Heaviside, there's ether. Something has to come from something. So going back to the gravity dilemma, is gravity causing mass to build up from the ether?
It would seem to me that is indeed the case, because where you get matter condensing, you eventually get more matter condensing, and you form these little islands that we like to call, in space, in the universe, that we like to call galaxies and solar systems and planets, and all the way down. And it goes down to the electron and proton. And when you look at the best possible controlled scenario that we can create for having nothing, we call it a deep vacuum, you still get the vacuum fluctuation. It's
jitter.
It's the jitter.
It's this positive, negative, little jittery. And a lot of people don't like it when I go this direction, but it's basically the breath of God was upon the surface of the deep. I mean, it's just basically this jittering voice wave thing of creation.
It's such a good description for it, because it's so gentle and low level when you observe it in an unstimulated state, which...
Bryton, have you ever had
let's not get too far down that road. I don't know
Bryton,
how much of that stuff we want to record.
Have you ever had a really beautiful woman blow on your back? Or blow on your face?
I was going to say not on my back.
Okay, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, no, Bryton, like...
Don't post that.
But what I'm trying to say is fusion is love. Fusion is love, and love is fusion. Okay, like what I'm trying to tell you and the audience.
I just ruined his whole talking point.
Not really, because everyone's thinking it, right? But that's okay, is because society has like made us think that way when we don't really have to. When we're children and we're pure and we think like a child, and it says in the Bible too, like think like a child, don't harden your hearts on all that. This technology is as gentle and powerful as you want it to be. And with a childlike heart, you can control it to be everything you want it and need it to be. You don't have to force it. You don't have to force anything. Hot fusion, they're forcing everything. Their preconceived notion of the universe makes them assume that they have to force it. And that's a wrong thinking. Can we pull it back and save this love, this interaction, this engagement with people and ourselves?
Yeah. I think it's also important to say that while it can be a very gentle process, love can also probably be a very exciting thing. And I think you can turn that dial up. And that holds true with these fusion processes. Is sky's the limit, but you have to turn that dial up harmoniously. If you don't have that thing working with itself,
okay, keep going.
Well,
we just got it called from our director.
Director over here said it's time for a refill.
Yeah, definitely.
here you
So-
go.
So
we keep this show going.
this is basically, as you can tell, this is kind of off the cuff, but it's really important to do this because this is where creativity comes from. Artists like what is the artist Picasso? He said something along the lines of like, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist, right? Was that Picasso or was that I think it was Picasso. And
That's
so
a good
what
one either way.
Yeah, and so what we have done, ladies and gentlemen, here at Quantum Kinetics is that we have found in an artistic way, we learned the rules of nature. And we did our studies. Bryton's done his studies. I've done my studies for over 5 years alone. Like you said in the other episode, that I disappeared off the face of the planet and I went into a hole and learned.
Yeah.
This is
Hermit
true.
mode, I think some people call it.
Hermit mode. And I read books. And here's the thing, Bryton. I read books from way back in the 1920s. I didn't read college textbooks from 2020. I didn't read college textbooks from 2010. I went back to the old antiquities of our founding fathers of electricity. And they said that all that is possible is through the thought and through the electricity in the wires. And that potentially a thought, and Oliver Heaviside said that a thought could be faster than the speed of light. He called it, quote, hyperdrive.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you think about the future with your brain, you're thinking about an event that has not happened yet. When you think about that beautiful woman that you were with the other night, you're thinking about something that happened a day ago. That's a time traveler. Your brain is time traveling, and your electrons in your brain are coalescing a realization of a matrix.
Right. I might compare that to some of these non-inertial propulsion systems that you see pop up on the internet sometimes.
Are you talking about a UFO or a plasmoid?
Oh yeah, I'm getting way off track here.
Actually, not so much. But
not
anyway.
off track. It's part of the subject. But when you see that little wave there in front of and behind the inertia-having device being driven by the non-inertial drive, you're seeing both a push and a pull being communicated at the same time with that gradient, like little slope that you're.
Are you talking
down.
when you say gradient? You're talking about a voltage gradient?
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's what I see going on there.
So can we assume?
And it makes sense and it seems plausible if you have a little bit more framework than what you're taught in school.
You said that the gradient is a voltage gradient. Would it be logical to say that gravity is a voltage gradient that has not been discharged? Because the moment you discharge a battery, the voltage goes away, right?
Come back full circle.
Yeah, is gravity like a voltage that is trying to discharge but can't discharge? And if the wobble becomes wider, the voltage gradient gets higher and then pulls it in harder. 2 minutes. Yeah.
That seems
gravity.
like,
because if it touches,
that would explain
it dead shorts, right? If it
would,
touches, it dead
right.
shorts.
It dead shorts. That seems like it to me. That would explain very well stable many body systems.
Stable body systems.
Because it seems to me, when we're talking about this here, that you have a couple dynamics going on. You have to have some sort of push to keep it falling from into the well. And you have to have some kind of pull to keep it from getting too far away.
This is actually
this is the nature of equilibrium systems. If you hang a weight from a rubber band, right? If it gets too high up, the gravity's pulling it down and stronger than the rubber band. But if you get too far down, the rubber band's pulling it back up stronger than the gravity. So you find this stable position.
Do you know what they call that, Bryton, in physics? It's kind of a forgotten Russian thing. It's called catastrophe theory. Have you ever heard of a book about catastrophe theory? where the orbit of something going out versus the orbit of something going in becomes stabilized and equilibrium?
You know I have. You recommended that book a while ago, and I've got to say that reading through that absolutely reframed some of the ways I was thinking about some of these fundamental physics problems, trying to come to some kind of a moderately practical and workable explanation for why these systems are behaving the way that they do. And the catastrophe of that is, I'd say, we might say it's critical.
It's absolutely critical, because what happens actually, and we're going to go ahead and close on this thought, okay, Bryton? And by the way,
All right.
this is really, really fun
Before
for
I
me.
get too much of this.
Yeah, no. Here's to that.
Cheers.
Because this is where creative energy comes from. It comes from deep down inside. The arc reactor technology, ladies and gentlemen, is a gravitational flux field that puts the electron in a state of, I think I want to discharge, but I'm not sure if I am discharging. It doesn't actually know what it is yet. And so then when you put the electron in that state, it's in this thing called superposition. And when it's in superposition, the arc reactor is now a quantum computer. And the quantum computer, just like your brain, can go into forward in time and also back in time, or be in time right now in this moment whenever it wants to be. The same thing with the plasmoids. This is just a very miniaturized plasmoid. It's safe. And this is why drones, when drones have their normal electronics, when they get next to a plasmoid, they just fall out of the sky.
Right.
Because the plasmoid energy basically dead shorts the drone's electronics, because it's traditional electrolysis, and it just dies. But the arc reactor is alive. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to say, we're closing, is that you are the arc reactor. Your heartbeat is the arc reactor. Your brain is the time-traveling device. And without those two together, you do not exist, just like the electron. And when you exist, you become what you think, and you can be whatever you want. And what we here at Quantum Kinetics believe is that we want a better world. And we're going to get that better world because this technology allows for it. And we are going to break down walls, and we're going to get it because we believe and we know it's true. And so we want you guys to come along for the journey, because this is really exciting, and this is your technology. So Bryton, again, thank you for coming along on the ship for the Quantum Kinetics. Thank you so much for being our Chief Production Officer. And oh my gosh, this is an exciting time for humanity. Cold nuclear fusion has never gotten this far ever in history, and you guys are witnessing a historic event. So let's go ahead and change the world together. Thank you, Bryton. Let's cheers one more time. And we'll see you guys on episode 7 for First Diffusion with Jason McCoy. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys later. Take care.
Take care.